In the US today, there is a legitimate concern over the best way to maintain school safety and promote a healthy learning environment for students. Schools use a variety of methods to ensure the safety and security of their students, employees, and visitors. One of those methods is using armed guards. Hi, I'm Jorge Ramirez with Safe and Sound Security, the place where professionals turn for all things related to security systems and solutions. Today, I'm going to share some facts and statistics with you on an extremely important topic: armed guards in schools. While some schools do use modern technology to deter violence and counter dangerous situations, others also have one or more armed officers present on campus. The presence of an armed officer in and around school buildings can maintain order and prevent any mishap that may occur on school grounds. However, not all schools consider recruiting armed security staff. They may choose to utilize security systems coupled with an unarmed security guard to protect their campuses. To better understand this complex issue of school safety, let's examine some facts about armed guards in schools. First, I want to explain the difference between security staff and armed guards. The main difference is that security staff in schools usually do not carry firearms. They have more of a managerial duty, such as overall security operations and supervising security training. However, security staff that routinely carry a firearm are known as armed guards. Now let's look at some statistics regarding security staff and armed guards in public schools. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, during the 2013-2014 school year, 43% of all public schools had one or more security staff present in their building. This number increased to 56.5% in the 2015-2016 school year. As for armed guards present in school or security staff routinely carrying a firearm, statistics show 28% of all schools employed armed security guards for the 2009 school year. In the 2015 school year, nearly 43% of public schools reported the presence of a sworn law enforcement officer routinely carrying a firearm in the school at least once a week. Now let's talk about primary schools specifically. Data obtained by the National Center for Education Statistics shows that during the 2015 school year, a total of 45.4% of primary schools had at least one or more security officers present on site. This shows an increase in the presence of security staff in primary schools from 2013 to 2014, which was at 28.6%. However, the percentage of primary schools with armed security guards is actually declining. During the 2007 school year, 20% of primary schools employed an armed guard. By the 2009 school year, that number had declined to 12.5%. Let's move on to middle schools. Between 2005 and 2014, the percent of middle schools employing security staff remained relatively constant at around 65%. However, by the 2015 school year, the number had jumped and 73.4% of middle schools had at least one or more security staff present on school grounds. In terms of armed security staff, the most recent data from the National Center for Education Statistics shows that a little more than half, or 51% of middle schools in the 2009 school year employed guards who routinely carried a firearm. Now let's talk about security in high schools in the US. High schools also showed similar security measures in place in an effort to protect their employees, students, and visitors. In the 2015 school year, 71.3% of high schools had one or more security officers present on campus, a big jump from 64.1% in the 2013 school year. This data shows that high schools have the highest percentage of security personnel compared to middle and primary schools. But what about armed security in high schools? Based on the statistics for the year 2009, 50.1% of the high schools reported having at least one or more armed officers routinely carrying a firearm. However, the statistics show a decrease in the percentage of armed officers carrying a firearm than a year before. In the year 2007, 54.9% of the high schools reported having armed officers routinely carrying a firearm. The percentage figure was 51.8% for 2005 to 2006. Let's move on to the other factors that impact school security. School enrollment is one factor that may impact whether or not a school employs armed security. For schools with an enrollment of 1,000 or more students, the percentage of schools with armed officers increased from 70% in 2005 to 74.6% during 2009. In comparison, the percentages for schools that have between 300 and 1,000 students enrolled range from 13 to 30%. This shows that larger schools with a higher enrollment have an increased likelihood of employing armed security officers. Another factor that can impact whether schools employ armed guards is the location of the school. In 2009, in cities, 27.6% of the schools employed armed guards. In the suburbs, 29.6% of the schools employed guards. In towns, the percentage was 31.6%, and in rural communities, the percentage was 24.5%. As we finish up this discussion of school safety, let's focus on law enforcement for a moment. As I mentioned briefly earlier, many public schools utilize sworn law enforcement officers who routinely carry a firearm in their schools. These police officers or sheriff's deputies patrol the schools and provide security in the event of an emergency or intruder. In the 2015 school year, 60.7% of high schools utilized armed law enforcement officers. In that same school year, 60% of middle schools and 30.6% of primary schools utilized armed law enforcement officers. Today we have analyzed the issue of school security and the utilization of armed guards in an educational setting. I hope the statistics I provided helped to clarify this complex issue. If you liked this video and it helped you learn more about statistics on armed guards in schools, make sure to like the video and click the subscribe button below. Also, if you'd like to browse some of our written content or have a security project you'd like to talk to us about, head over to getsafeandsound.com. And now, I'd like to turn it over to you. Do you have any comments or questions about these facts and statistics? Let me know by leaving a comment below right now.